Hi, this is Eric from Three Bridge Records, and this is Inside the Track for the new single from Sumsuch, Dulcie Caught a Cricket. Enjoy.
Well, yeah, the name was literally, I end up with file names that make no sense most of the time. So it was literally what had just happened when I sat down to make a tune. And Dulcie was a friend who kind of arrived. She was kind of the first part of my COVID breakdown, really. She's actually American. She's kind of a rescue. She was brought here. Unfortunately, she was wild caught and brought here. But she's here now, and we've been keeping each other company through the pandemic. So yeah, she had just been fed, and then I started working on a bit of a track, and that ended up being the file name, and I just stuck with it. I thought it was kind of sweet. The track itself, I just got one of those, the Behringer 303 clones, the TD3 thing. So I was basically just playing with that with my drum brute. And what I've been doing more recently, probably more for tracks that are perhaps going to be a bit more danceable, because as you know, most of my stuff, Eric, is pretty down tempo. Is that I wanted to just commit to audio as quickly as possible. So basically, it was the acid bass that you hear in the track and the drums. The drum brute were loops, which were then filtered and turned on and off live. And commit to audio, and I kind of want to make that decision early and kind of make the arrangement just with the drums and the bass, and then I built the track around those elements basically and didn't touch them, so there's no edits to the kind of, so there's a bit of a sort of jam performance element to it, which I think gives it a bit more energy.
Yeah, it definitely has almost like a live feel to it, even though it's very electronic. I feel like they don't seem like there's a lot of overdubs or any of that stuff. It feels like it's quite raw in its delivery, and I really like that aspect of it.
And Eric,
Yes,
I also your remix. I always love because this isn't the first time you've remixed one of my tracks, and there's something about your remixes that are always very true to the original, but then there's always just that shansification that happens, which is just that extra element of kind of melodic melancholy, perhaps. Is that the right?
yeah,
Those be the right words.
Yeah, I think so too. I think with remixes, I always try to keep the vision, or whatever you want to call it, from the original artist. And exactly that. It's almost like okay, you laid the groundwork. I'm gonna try to build on this with my own take on things. And what you guys were saying about remixes, I never try to. I don't want to yank everything from the original. That's not really a remix to me. That's just a redo, and I don't want to redo stuff. I want to remix it. I want to, almost like you're working with that person as a team, and you want to okay, I really like what they did, and I want to just add to it and hopefully, make it my sound too. And that's what I tried to do with that, especially because that acid line is obviously the most identifiable part of it, and taking that and also adding the dialogue sample that I found. Yeah, because
talk us through that. Talk us through how long did you spend searching? English man talks about spiders. Right. Your search history is now littered with
right. Yeah, my YouTube recommendations are really odd now. But yeah, it was interesting because I was let me try to find something that really makes sense here, because not everybody's going to know Dulcie is your spider. Not everybody is going to know, what the song's actually about based on the cover. Now they might, because there's a spider on the cover, but what I always appreciate in music is identifiers, whether that's a vocal, whether that's you know, a certain sound that's repeated, what have you. But with this, I wanted to find something. I was like, you know what, English, you know, professor or scientist or somebody talking about a spider, and I just went through a few videos, and I'm like, this is perfect. He's talking about a spider that he saw on some like hallucinating, like, I don't know, he's like, maybe he took acid or something like that, which makes sense because of the acid line. And there's this interesting dialogue, and the way he's talking about it is so matter of fact. And when you put it in a track against the music and add some effects, it adds a real mystique to it, and I thought that was really interesting and fun. And Frank, you know, with the remix, what did you want to highlight or put your own spin on? Sorry, you know, as far as like, you know, elements from the original and adding your own, things like that.
Yeah, well, I thought the elements were great to work with. So a lot of my stuff, I like to use a lot of textures. So between a bell sound and a synth, I created some textures to go along with the main elements that Will provided. And then, as I mentioned to Will, the biggest challenge was working with the bass line, the acid bass. And so I used my Roland Gaia and came up with an analog bass line to go along with it. And then I thought it'd be a cool idea to have his bass line, the acid bass line, build in from the main break and then come out as the main bass line. And then, of course, to fill some pockets, I added a snare, give it a lift, and another hi-hat. And really that was it, just chopping up the segments, rearranging, creating some different patterns, some reverse drum patterns and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I noticed the bass in yours is quite full, and it's got a really nice sound to it, and it has this neat little chord progression that builds around the acid line that I really like.
I really love the kind of build on yours, Gatto. It's just got that kind of, it takes the acid level, the sort of level that I reached with the acid, and it kind of starts there, and it just comes at you. I love it. I was just listening to it before the call.
Yeah. I like to kind of build on elements like that. I think it's a great way to approach building tracks. And I thought that, like I said, I thought the elements were great to work with, and it just made it that much easier. It all kind of came to me, other than that bass line, it kind of came to me pretty quickly, and I was able to really put it together. You're limiting yourself if you're not breaking the rules. Right. I had this conversation when I was cooking the other night with my wife. She goes, well, you're not supposed to if you're going to do it this way, you're not supposed to use tomato sauce with this. And I said, well, who's to say you can't use the tomato sauce? Why can't I? I'm going to use the tomato sauce because the best people are breaking the rules. Let's break the rules.
Does it taste good? Yeah, exactly.
Right?
No, I always love the food analogy. It makes a huge amount of sense. And that's the thing. I guess the difference now is if we were back in hardware studios recording on tape, there's a point where it's like, oh, now we have to set everything up, we have to reset it, like, can we live with this mistake? Whereas nowadays when we're in software, it's just like, okay, well, I can just do that and chop it out. So it's almost like a Pavlovian response where we go, okay, there's a mistake, I'll fix it. Yeah. Rather than like, if it was a lot more effort to fix it, you'd kind of be going, oh, maybe I can live with it. And I think that's another part of like our process as a creative or as an artist or as a producer, is to kind of look at mistakes and go, is that actually adding something, which I think sometimes we're very quick because it's so easy to just make it perfect and uniform. I'd probably make a track that you could play. Like, I never play my own stuff when I DJ, and I very rarely make a track that you could play to a dance floor. I made one during a global pandemic. It'll be another 10 years till I make another one.
I try to. Sometimes it's hard, but I try to get one in there, one or two. but a guy that used to mix my track. He's like, why don't you do a mix of all your tracks in like one mix? And I was like, it's almost, I mean, it would be very hard because of the way the stuff I create is so diverse. To be able to put it all together in a mix it would probably take a month of like trying to work it all out, you know? It would be difficult to do. So I never tried.
Yeah, it's a fun challenge.
I've done a few. I call them homegrowns. I've done like 3, and it's actually really interesting to just go back and just use all your own material and see maybe how you progressed or how you wrote something at the time. It's actually really interesting to do from a DJ perspective as well as an artist perspective. It's kind of just, it's almost like a retrospective in your own head, and you go back and you almost like remember each track and what you were doing at the time. So it's actually really cool. It's almost like your own yearbook. So even if you don't want to, put it out, it's a fun experiment to do. If you want to just go back and listen to your own, all of your old stuff and see how it might work and thread it together in a mix. I thought it was fun to do, so I'll do it again.
Find certain things you did within a track that you might not have really paid attention to before, right? When you go back, and then you get an idea for something new from that older track, whether it's a drum section or some sort of sample bass line.
Dulcie Caught a Cricket is out on May 21st on Beatport exclusively, so next week, and comes out June 4th on all their streaming and shops. And yeah, we're really looking forward to it. So,
Thanks so much for releasing it, Eric.
yeah, of course. Pleasure to do it, and always happy to release great music.